But to go into the pre-season with no strikers by Yuki, and if you're going to argue Tyler Roberts, that's shocking. That to me explains why we had so many troubles putting the ball in the net last season. So welcome back to Small Heath Alliance FC. And on Saturday, Birmingham City released the highly anticipated retain list. Now, me and Dad, and I'm sure the majority of Blues supporters as well, are really excited for the rebuild this summer. And when we read that list, it felt like the first stage in that process of finally Blues being able to sort of rebuild this summer. But in case you missed it, I'm going to hand it straight over to Dad. I'm going to go over some of the finer details of that retain list. So Dad, over to you. You want to give some more information to the viewers about that retain list?
Yeah, if you haven't seen the retained list, I'm just going to read it out now so that you can see which players Birmingham City have released, which ones they have offered new contracts to. So no real surprises here, but leaving the club are Marcel Oakley, Neil Etheridge, Gary Gardner, Scott Hogan, Mark Roberts and Ivan Sunjic. So they obviously have not been offered new contracts. They've activated the contract extension for Keshi Anderson. So obviously there was a extension clause in his contract which Blues have activated. Obviously, all of our loans will go back as well. So the likes of Cody Drama, Emmanuel Ayew, Andre Dezelle, Oliver Burke and Jay Stansfield will all go back to their parent clubs. So they clearly won't be with us this next season. And interestingly, they've offered new contracts to both Lukas Jukovic and to John Ruddy. So that's the gist of the retained list. So what's your thoughts on that then, Matt?
No major surprises, really. I thought that I was happy that Yuki and Ruddy got a new contract. But for me, I think I've read on social media a couple of Blues fans were going, they're a little bit older now. And I think they've been kept around for their seniority, their captaincy, their leadership.
Let's make it clear they've been offered new contracts.
Yes.
So it's up to them whether they accept them or not, isn't it? So I think that's worth clarifying.
Of course,
but you are right. So sorry, carry on.
And it's also worth clarifying, just because a player's in contract doesn't mean they may not go this summer. They could be sold as well. So, because again, a lot of fans are going, I thought we were having a clear out. But actually, when you look at the contracted players, strap in Blues fans, because it's still going to be a wild summer. It's going to be a roller coaster. A lot of players are going to be coming in and out, even those contracted players. There's undeniably going to be several who go.
Yeah.
So that's worth clarifying as well.
Yeah.
But just back to the point, I think Ruddy and Yuki have been kept around for that leadership, that professionalism around the camp, because we can't just have a team of youngsters go out and suddenly go out in League One. They're there to sort of hold it. And I think Ruddy will be a number 2 if he accepts the contract, and I think Yuki will still be a player off the bench.
Well, if we just focus on those two at the moment, because you made some good points actually there, Matt. Firstly, with Yuki, absolutely chuffed to bits they've offered him a new contract. I think you Blues fans will all agree that just for his presence, just for the fact that he's a role model, just for the fact of the values he represents, he's worth offering a contract to. And we've spoken about this before on previous podcasts, and if you watch the channel, Blues fans, you'll know that we've hoped that Blues would offer Jukovic a new contract, and thankfully they have. Hopefully he will accept it. Remember, it's still an offer. John Ruddy, I see slightly differently, to be honest, Matt. I think it depends what contract we've offered him. Firstly, there's a couple of things, have we offered him a 1-year contract? Because it's likely that he would possibly want 2 years. Goalkeepers can be slightly older in terms of, they don't have to have the legs of some of the outfield players, so that's fine. But for John Ruddy, also, is he going to be willing to be a number 2? That's the thing, isn't it, as well? And we know that there's already been interest from all the press, the Blackburn Rovers, relinking with John Eustace. So I've no doubt that John Eustace is probably going to have John Ruddy is going to have other offers. And it's whether or not it works for both sides, really. So we don't know what Birmingham City have offered him. I don't know, obviously. I think it's going to be a 1-year contract.
Yeah, same.
And I think that he will possibly realise that depending upon the type of style of play that Blues want to play, he's also likely to be number 2. So the chance with him, I'm less confident that he would sign the contract. If he does as number 2, fine. But I'm not sure.
I must admit, I think one of the highest Blues priorities this summer will be a good, young, hungry goalkeeper. I think we've been crying out for a good goalkeeper. I mean, the last goalkeeper I really enjoyed was Millwall's Sarkovic. Sarkovic, and he was a great goalkeeper, young, really athletic. I really liked the look of him in goal. He was, I think, the last keeper for me that I thought, wow, we really have something again. He was on loan. I think a goalkeeper will be coming in the gates through the gates this summer, and I think Ruddy, if he accepts that contract, will be a number 2. Who knows? They might have put a coaching clause into the contract. We don't know the finer details, do we, of what these contracts entail? It might be the same with Yuki, a part player, part coaching. We just don't know. But
Well, I think we can all accept that even in League One, Yuki's not going to start every game.
No, of course he's not.
Because of where he is in his career, he's getting towards the latter stages of his playing career. That's just a fact.
Yeah.
But he's the type of player, particularly in League One. We've always said, Matt, haven't we? If you put the ball up in the net, up to Yuki, he's going to win. He wins the ball virtually every single time. So that means that he will play a really important part in League One. And but clearly, we know we're not going to see him from the start of games very often.
Well, as you say, Yuki's Mr. Blues, isn't he? He's Mr. Birmingham. I think I read on social media earlier. He loves the club. He gets us. And I really like the word you said, role model.
Yeah.
And I feel like if he's the role model around the
He
place,
sets the standard, doesn't he?
He does, yeah.
And I think that,
and he gets us. He gets the fan base. He gets the club.
We need that in the club. So, we talk about this identity. He's got Blues DNA all the way through him. He needs to translate that now, not just to the younger players, but also to the new players that are going to come through the door. Is there any in those 6 players that I've mentioned that have been released? Marcus Oakley, Neil Etheridge, Gary Gardner, Scott Hogan, Mark Roberts, or Ivan Sunjic that you would have liked to have kept?
So we did a video recently about a very specific player, which was Ivan Sunjic, and I said we did the video on the basis of us staying up in the Championship, and I said no, and you said yes to renewing Sunjic's contract. And actually, when we got relegated, I thought Sunjic would have made a really good League One player. He's battling, he's a fighter, he's a scrapper. So he was the only one for me that I thought might have got offered a new contract and deserved possibly a new contract. However, his wages, I looked at it as a really big chance for us to clear the wage bill, and I think he was on something like approaching 20 grand a week.
I think it was 18.
It was very high.
Yeah.
So I was not surprised in the context of the salary, but I was a little bit surprised in the context of I felt like he possibly deserved one, and he would have been decent in League One. All the rest of them, with all due respect, I had no surprises.
Yeah, I would have been happy if we'd have offered on Ivan Sunjic the contract. But the issue is I think there's lots of issues with this. Firstly, it's the salary. There's no way that we were going to offer him anything like he was on, so therefore he's probably going to be looking elsewhere for a higher salary. And secondly, as well, I think even as much as I've always banged the drum for Ivan Sunjic, there's this thing where you say, well, okay, if we really want to move on as a football club now, we need to sort of really start to look at progressive players. And is it, if we keep too many of our current squad, what is fundamentally going to be different? So there is that argument as well. Having said that, though, if he would have been offered a new contract or in League One, I would have been quite happy. But I agree with you, the salary and the fact that, I think we do need to move on now.
Well, Sunjic is the one player that does show that fight. He does show that desire. He's the one player, you call him the disruptor, don't you? He does get in there and get stuck amongst it. So if there was one player who was going to hang around for those principles, it would have been Sunjic. But
maybe moving forward, that could be Alfie Chang. Maybe,
exactly.
Maybe
Exactly.
if he can keep himself fit and get a few more games, then absolutely fine.
Yeah.
What about the loan players, Matt? I mean, obviously, we had different experiences with loan players over last season. Let me read them out again. Cody Drama, Emmanuel Ayew, Andre Dazal, Jay Stansfield and Oliver Burke. I think it's clearly not worth asking you, would you keep Jay Stansfield? Because of course we would, But chances of us getting him even on loan in League One is minuscule, unfortunately. But what about the other 4? Any there that you feel that might be worth a punt?
Dazal hasn't done it. Ayew hasn't done it. Obviously, Burke hasn't done it. The only lone player I would look at bringing in who's not going to drop his game to League One would be Cody Drama, and I'm gutted that he's not going to stay around because I think he's a brilliant right back. In fact, I'm going to call it ways. I think he's better than Laird, and I think he makes us more stable down that right hand side. Yeah. I would have loved to see him sign, but he ain't going to sign in League One.
I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know what happened at the end of the season because when Gary Rowett came in for the last 8 games, we didn't even see Cody Drama. In fact, in some matches, he wasn't even picked on the bench. But I agree with you. I couldn't figure that out because he gives us more, I believe, going forward than Laird does. And is equally as good as a fullback as Laird. So I think he's slightly better than Laird. I mean, we have to be a little bit fair to Laird because I think that he's still. I don't think he's completely over his injury. I know he's had a lot of games now and stuff like that, but I think he needs a really good pre-season. Andrew.
I mean, just to jump in, I rate Ethan Laird. Yeah. I think Ethan Laird's a really good player, and he's. I saw an interview recently, and he was saying he's more known for his attacking ability than his defensive ability. But I actually think he's a pretty good defensively. Actually, I just think Cody Dramus gives us
I,
more stability down the right side. That's all it is.
I think if the club were to offer drama, I think we're in a slightly different position to a lot of League One clubs. Is that we probably can offer them the the project. The fact that we have got a real big vision for the club, and also as well salary wise, we could probably offer them a little bit more as well. So so some players need to be prepared possibly to come down to League One to join us and get in at that foundation stage, whereas when we do start to sort of go up the leagues, it's going to be a lot more difficult. So with the right type of offer, it's worth a try. In my opinion, it's worth a try. But we don't know what's gone on there, so there could be things that we don't know about with Cody Drama's relationship with the club that actually resulted in the fact that we didn't even see him.
To me, and I've said this on previous videos, Blues fans, if you've watched it, you'll know, I think he seemed disgruntled. I think there was something going on behind the scenes with Cody Drama. It made no sense. I know he had a couple of bad games, Millwall, QPR, to reference a few there, just before Gary Rowett came in that first game that he came in.
Yeah.
But he didn't do that badly that he didn't warrant him starting the last 6 games. It didn't make sense. It didn't make sense. It didn't add up. And when I saw his body language and I saw little various bits, I felt like Drama looked like a disgruntled player. However, if they're going to offer him a contract and he's going to accept it and we can somehow rebuild that relationship, if my speculation would be right, I'd happily have Drama at the club. I think he's a fantastic player.
It's a bit of a head scratcher, that is. I can't figure out what happened because, he has had a really good, consistent season when he's came on for us and he's played a lot of games, actually, Cody Drama, and a really, really good quality player. Yeah. And I don't know what happened there. Something else just want to ask you on this as well. What's your thoughts on Keshi Anderson's extension being activated?
I'm quite happy about it. I think he had a decent end. I think he had a good end to the season. He had a bit of an underwhelming middle, but he also had an injury, which kept him out for quite some time. And then he had a decently strong end to the season. And I think he's actually, if he accepts the contract and starts, I think he could be great in League One. So I've actually got no problem with Keshi Anderson whatsoever.
I think the same. I agree. I think he started off very, very well this season. But I think as well, like you said, I think the key thing was his injury. And then when he came back off injury, because of the change of managers, some managers fancied him, some of them didn't. But towards the end of the season, he came back to his really, really strong again. I just hope that for him, it's almost as if he knew he had to do really, really well at the end of the season to get this contract extension. And fair play to him. I was really impressed with him, and I'm glad we've got him in League One because I think he could cause a lot of trouble for League One teams. He could.
He's good and he's physical.
Yeah.
He's a stocky player. He's good going forward. He can be quite flary on his day, and he does get balls into the box. So I think he's going to be decent.
I think that was a good decision. That was because his extension is only going to be for another year, and and that gives him another year to impress. And
also, if we keep releasing players and selling all our players, we're going to have no one left eventually. So we need some players to start. The season
well, this retained list has really depleted us. But we knew that was going to happen anyway, didn't we, Matt?
I've got one observation and one question, if you don't mind. Then, so
course,
my observation is, I felt like it was a failure of this club that when you look at that retain list, if Yuki doesn't accept his contract, we have no forwards left. And if you're classing Tyler Roberts as a striker and he's not, he's technically a centre attacking mid. So if Yuki declines that contract, which I don't think he would, we've got no strikers. To me, that is a massive oversight for this club. The fact that we've now been left with no forwards. I mean, it doesn't matter as much now because we are going into League One with the summer, with Knighthead behind us, with a decent budget. But to go into the pre-season with no strikers by Yuki, and if you're going to argue Tyler Roberts, that's shocking. That to me explains why we had so many troubles putting the ball in the net last season. That screams it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Jay Stansfield, bless him, on his own, really up front as a single standalone striker. I mean, he did very well, but that was a key fault of the club that we didn't get another striker in January.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I totally agree with you, Matt.
And my question for you is, obviously we've got a lot of players in contract. Some of them, and me and you have mentioned our frustrations about some of them saying I don't want to play in League One. We haven't heard any of this yet. I'm sure we will over the next few weeks. But who do you think is going to be hot off the press in those contracted players to leave this summer?
Well, the one that stands out to me the most is Siriki Dembele. Because he got himself a reputation for not wanting to do the grafting back. Do we want him? Because do you want a player that is obviously completely talented going forward and he scored some good goals for us, but completely erases all that because he's making us vulnerable at the back because he's not putting in the shift to get back. And I just wonder. I don't think that's going to work in League One. I don't think that's going to work for us.
You need grafters in League
We
One.
yeah we can't have like fancy fair plays. They just get booted in the air.
Yeah.
And
I
I
mean, they have their place, but
y-
you need to be able to do the dirty work. And Gary Rowett said in his post-match interview at Norwich, and he's come out and said since we have players in the squad who aren't willing to do the ugly side of the game, and
he was
he's prime.
mentioned.
He's a prime example of that. So in League One, you need, even if you're a flary player, look at Keshe Anderson. Right, he's not in the same league as Siriki Dembele in terms of flair, but he does do the dirty work. He does come back. He does the ugly side of the
You're
game.
going to have to do that in League
100%.
One. So he would be. I would say he's vulnerable to whether we actually keep him or not. And then, of course, then you've got all these international players. You've got the likes of Christian Bielek, Paik, Kobe Binoche, Jordan James, and there's a lot of speculation about him as well. Whether they feel that playing in League One is going to be a hindrance to their potential to be called up at international level. Bakuna as well is another one. But I would hope that these players would want to stay, even though they're international, and realise that, if they play well, make their contribution, it could only be for one season. So I think all the internationals are potentially vulnerable, i.e. there's a potential that any of them could potentially go. Possibly. I hope not, because there's some good players in that list I've just mentioned.
I mean, if we get decent money, if you look at Jordan James, if you can get sort of 10 plus million for him, I don't think many Blues fans would turn their nose up at that. The two contracted players I really want to stay, but it depends on interest and their attitude. For me, it's Bielek and Buchanan. They're the two for me who I think make us a little bit stronger at the back. Bielek especially in that sense. Imagine Bielek at the centre half in League One. He'd be solid. He'd be a monster in League One. He would.
It's whether he's got, obviously when he was Derby, he decided he didn't want to come down to League One, and obviously Steve signed for us. Now the ball's the other way around, and we're the team that he could potentially decide. I hope he doesn't. I hope he realises there's no World Cup coming up for Poland, so he could. He's not going to really affect his international career that much, and he could have a stonking season in League One, and then take us flying into the Championship the following season, and that's going to do his international credentials a lot of credit. There's a couple of players in there as well that you've already mentioned Tyler Roberts. Is he vulnerable or not? Well, I don't think he is because he's on a long contract with us.
Who's this? Sorry, Tyler Roberts.
Tyler Roberts,
yeah.
And also as well, I'm sure some teams may sort of look at him and think, well, actually, he did all right at Leeds for a few sort of seasons maybe, but who'd want him? But what I'm going to say about Tyler Roberts is he might see League One as a real opportunity to start building his career
Kickstart his career back
again.
off.
Because imagine if he could score a load of goals in League One and then take the confidence. Because I've seen glimpses, particularly against Coventry, of a proper player in there. Proper quality player.
That assist for the Stansfield third goal was just incredible.
Yeah, and there's not just that as well. I think there is that. That was brilliant, but also not just that game, but you see little glimpses where he does that. I think he's in a position where he's a striker. He's a striker on paper, but he needs to score more goals. And I think sometimes he feels the pressure and he's overplaying. So I think he needs a bit of confidence building. He can do that in League One. Yeah. So to me, I don't think we'll keep him. The other player that I think we need to see a lot more from is Alex Pritchard as well. I know he's been hampered by injury since he came to us, but we know from what we saw at Sunderland that there's a decent player in there. That's the thing, isn't it, Matt? When you look at our squad and look at our players, there's some fantastic players in terms of what they've done at previous clubs, but they now need to step up and do it for us on a more regular basis. And I think League One might be an opportunity for them.
Yeah, I still think there's going to be this is only the start. There's still going to be more players to go over the summer. It's going to be mental in a couple of weeks' time. When the window opens, I think we're going to see quite a lot of players come and a lot of players go.
This is just a retained list,
exactly,
So Blues fans, don't be under the impression that retained list is just the be all and end all. We're going to. I agree with you, Matt. I think that we're going to see a lot of players that are contracted that are either going to have a lot of speculation from interest from other clubs, and some of them undoubtedly will. And also as well, they're contracted to us. There might be some that the club have already earmarked to move on themselves. Mm-hmm. So actually, trying to get them sold if possible. Yeah. So I think, but the exciting thing about the retained list now is that's the retained list is the drawing line, isn't it? Okay, this is the players we want to keep. These are the ones that are going. And now we can start to build from now on. So it's a really, really significant thing. Yeah. So no major surprises in there for me. And obviously not to repeat anything we've said in the podcast today, but the fact that the real thing that I'm really happy about is the fact that they've given Yuki a
Yeah,
contract
same.
for me.
Yeah,
That's the thing that I thought, oh, that's
yeah.
fantastic.
Mr. Birmingham. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
definitely. As
yeah.
we'll say it again, the Duke of Edinburgh, and I think that's a
Yeah,
perfect note to end this particular session on. But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
no, really happy for Yuki, and I'm happy his career with Blues didn't end with relegation. Of course, pending him accepting a contract, I'm happy now he gets to come down to not happy he comes down to League One in that way, but he's happy that last day and his memory with the club wasn't relegation.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. That was the big takeaway for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a takeaway for a lot of Blues fans.
Yeah.
But you just heard our thoughts on the retain list Blues fans. But please, as always, we'd love to hear from you. Please drop us a comment in the section below about your thoughts. Were you happy with it? Do you think we could have let go more? Do you think there'll be a lot of transfers coming in and a lot of people going in the summer? As I say, leave us a comment and let us know your thoughts. We'd love to hear from you. And if you like this content, if you like this video specifically, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up. And please don't forget to check us over on our social media channels, on our X page and our Instagram page are popping up on screen right now. And if you haven't already, please don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel so you don't miss any future content all about Birmingham City. And me and Dad will see you on the next video.